Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shadow at Night. It's Monday, May 27th, 2024. On the show tonight, NCI Lawyer Shawn Buckley of Buckley & Company, based in Alberta. We're going to be talking about the changes, the forthcoming changes the Liberal federal government is going to be introducing to health food products. But then again, it is receiving heavy pushback in the House of Commons. We don't know exactly when. Well, maybe Shawn does know exactly when these new rules are going to take effect. They're not good. He has prepared an 18-page summary of how bad they are, which we'll look at tonight as well. And also, Shawn and his wife Teresa are working on a brand new version of the National Citizens Inquiry that's going to be hitting Saskatchewan at some point in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we can get Shawn to elaborate on all of that stuff as the show goes on tonight. It is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver. Canada, there is the Natural Health Product Association summary. We'll get to that. The show is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The naked bandage. You know how many times I've gone to shake somebody's hand and I've seen this big, ugly, bloody bandage on their hand, and I go, whoa, what have you been doing, buddy? The naked bandage takes that effect away because you can't see it. It's naked. It's see-through. This strong and flexible bandage is clear, so you can check up on your healing without having to remove the bandage. Its ultra-thin technology moves with your skin, flexing over uneven tissue as needed. The naked bandage is waterproof, flexible, soft, and transparent. It's a bandage that breathes and moves with your skin, seals out dirt and contaminants, and feels like you have nothing on at all, which is very comfortable as opposed to having to change the bandage all the time and clean it's nearly invisible. So like the name suggests, your skin looks and feels, well, naked. The naked bandage, just one of many awesome products available at CanadaNanoSilver.ca, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Don't forget, $2 from the sale of every product between now and June 21st will go to the costs of the Stronger Together conference being put on by Manitoba Stronger Together, June 21st, 22nd, 23rd in Beausejour, Manitoba. I will be your MC and your panel moderator as that weekend goes on. Lots of great guests coming to Manitoba that weekend. Hopefully you'll come as well. Ticket details, and they're very reasonably priced for the weekend or single days, are available at ManitobaStrongerTogether.ca. That again is ManitobaStrongerTogether.ca. Let's go and see who's watching tonight. All over Facebook, a lot of people are complaining to not getting notifications for the show. Here's what I say. Make sure you are following the page. It's important that you're following the page. If you're not following, or if you haven't liked the page, you won't get notifications. But I've been watching you for 3 years and the notifications just went away. That's because Facebook will sometimes just shut off your likes. They'll take away your likes. If you don't go to a page often enough, they'll just say, well, I guess this person doesn't really want to see this page anymore, and they eliminate that from your feed. So you have to go back and make sure you've liked it. Hello, Linda, watching in Lady Lake, Saskatchewan. Barbara's watching in Glenora. Elsie, hello, watching in Winnipeg. Linda's watching from crazy Calgary. Does that mean it's snowing there or something? Patricia's watching in Grimsby, which wouldn't be a shock for Calgary this time of year. I once played in the golf tournament there. Well, didn't play in it because it got canceled by a snowstorm on July the 4th. Vicky is watching in Nova Scotia tonight. Hello, Lucette in Saint-Jean-Baptiste. Leona Marie Lebeau-Laguerre, hello, is watching in Portage-La Prairie. Christine is in Enola. Hello, Lena, watching in London, Ontario. Kath is watching in Hamilton, the Hammer, Ontario. Don't forget, like and share. Let's get this out there to as many people as we possibly can. If you're watching on Facebook or X, and if you're watching on Rumble tonight, ooh, hang on, turn that down. Ooh, double me, not good. Hello, Rumble. North Scotty is watching tonight. Vilma, Susie Q, Esky Dog 020269. Nuts. No balls, but we do have nuts. Bully Breed Lover is watching in Somerset, Manitoba. Mustang Sandy is watching in Victoria. Starliner 1961 is watching. Winston Smith in Winnipeg. North Scotty is watching as well. Again, guys, on Rumble, it's a big deal. If you give the thumbs up, that gets it out to 100 million strong Rumble community. If you want to share it, hit the share button beneath the screen. That highlights the URL above the screen. From there, you can copy and paste to your favorite social media. You can do an email share, or you can put it in a group or Telegram or something like that. All right, let's bring on Shawn Buckley. You know Shawn as the NCI lawyer, but Shawn has also been working diligently. And this is what we got, Shawn, the last time you were on the show. You've been working diligently with the health food and products community in Canada for what, the last 25 years now, trying to better things for that community. But this does not look good, this new thing that they've got coming down, which was hidden in an omnibus bill the Liberals passed last year with the budget in June, I think. Am I right? We can't hear you, Shawn. You're...
Sometimes when I don't turn my mic on, you can't hear, which is very strange. I actually think we should break on your show things they snuck into the budget bill for this year about 2 weeks ago. Because I think it's very, very significant. I think it signals that the federal government is planning a pandemic. So, like what you were just talking about is timely. So what happened last year is...
Wait a minute, Shawn. First of all, how are you doing? It's been a while since you've been on. I just want to check and see how you are.
I have to say, Shadow, I'm just totally exhausted because the National Citizens Inquiry has 3 days of hearings this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Regina. And you have no idea how much work it is to get everything organized and get your witnesses all prepped and the like. So, yeah, so it's late nights and early mornings, but really, really excited about this set of hearings. It's just some of the witnesses are just going to blow everyone's mind. So
congratulations on putting that together, by the way. I think that's a monumental feat considering everything that you were up against these past 6 months or so. So a job well done there. Before we move on to these new regulations, and I've got the 18-page summary that you've sent me here. We'll put it up on the screen in case you need to refer to it. What was this you were just saying about the federal government planning a new pandemic?
Planning a pandemic. So Shadow, what happened is you were talking about how last year in the federal budget bill, Health Canada snuck in some changes to the Food and Drug Act, which, in itself is completely anti-democratic and, really just says that the government could care less about our democracy. Because just so your viewers are aware, I mean, budget bills literally are like an old phone book in a good-sized city. They're long and they're meant for spending. Like when the federal government's spending, tens of billions of dollars in a fiscal year, they make some legal changes, they create programs, they move things around. And so you've got to do a big bill for that. But you don't use that as an opportunity to hide, substantive changes to our health rights. Because when a bill gets past second reading, so there's a first reading and then there's a break for everyone to kind of figure out what's going on. And then there's second reading. It then goes to a committee to be reviewed. Well, budget bills go to the finance committee. And that's where, the finance committee has expert in financial matters, but they have no expertise in our health rights and the Food and Drug Act and our drug regulations. So, it's completely a fraud on us to sneak them into the federal budget bill. So first of all, we should be super alarmed that the federal government is making sweeping changes to our safety laws and our food and drug laws and our health rights, and doing it underhandedly in an undemocratic way. So that itself says, wait a second, there's something going on. Now, they did that last year, and I'm happy to talk about that a little later. But this year, the budget bill's passed. Well, everyone's watching. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to look at it, and I'm getting emails saying there's changes. So because I work with the Natural Health Product Protection Association, which is a freedom group that's just dedicated to protecting your health rights, but with particular emphasis on natural health products. So,
we can throw that up on the screen later. I just wanted to let everybody know that it's there.
So when you go to nhppa.org and you see under my name, I've got NHPPA. So that's just the short form for our name. So nhppa.org, there's a resources tab. And if you click on that, then there's a discussion paper tab. You can get a copy of that yourself. Well, Shadow, I'm just going in order. So there are changes to the Food and Drug Act, and I'm going in order. And before I tell you the changes, I'll have to just say, I've been in drug regulation for 30 years. When I still had a law firm, I closed it down not last August, the August before, because volunteering at the NCI just couldn't do both. We do drug licensing. I've been called as an expert in drug regulation on the Standing Committee of Health. Other lawyers still will consult with me and, ask me if I'll be an expert witness or, kind of give them advice on files. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm going through these changes and I'm scratching my head. I'm going, look, why are they doing this? And so I go through the first one, the second one, third, fourth, fifth, and I'm beside myself. I don't know what's going on because there's no public discourse about this. Nobody's saying we're having a problem here. And I'm legitimately confused. It's like a Saturday. I've done my analysis, but I'm at a loss where it's going. And then it just dawns on me, stop looking at them individually, look at them as a group, because they all came as a group.
And then the amendments, all of these new changes.
So I'll go through the amendments and you guys will all be scratching your heads. And then once I'm through and we look at them as a group and I tell you, okay, let's look at them as a group. And what it means is another pandemic is coming. And I'll explain what I explained to the NDP health critic last week and a Conservative Party member before their caucus met on it, because they're going, well, what's going on here? Why is this happening? So the first change is the Minister of Health will have the power to basically stop off-label use by medical practitioners. And it's important for your audience to understand what off-label use is. So on-label use is, so let's say a drug company wants to have a drug for stage 1 breast cancer. Well, they'll do a clinical trial for stage 1 breast cancer, not stage 2, 3, or 4, stage 1. And let's say the group that they allow into the clinical trial are age 25 to 40, and Health Canada approves that drug. Well, it's approved for stage 1 breast cancer only. It's approved only for age 25 to 40. That's on-label use. Well, now you're a doctor, you're an oncologist, and you've got a 42-year-old with stage 1 breast cancer, and you decide to use that drug because it's the best drug to use. Now you're off-label. You're beyond the approval by Health Canada. That's what they mean by off-label use. Well, there's almost no clinical trials run on children and pregnant women, and a lot that exclude old people because they don't want the drug to show as harmful, so they avoid vulnerable populations. So almost
the tricks they use are amazing to me. I mean, I was reading a lot about how they managed to get even the emergency use approval in the United States for the Pfizer COVID vaccines, and the little tricks and
well, this is related. What's happening?
Okay,
so
please continue.
What we're talking about now, it just totally ties into ivermectin. So, and hydroxychloroquine and vitamin D. So most prescriptions are off-label use. You'll have a drug on the market for a long time, the patents run out, and doctors who kept prescribing it, let's say for arthritis, and everyone's getting back to them and saying, my sinusitis is gone. Well, and then there's case series run and all of that, and a drug might even be better for another condition than what it's approved for. But because the patents run out, nobody's going to apply for that other use because there's no money involved. So off-label use is really important. It's also provincial jurisdiction. It's the provinces that regulate doctors. And let's think about this for a minute. Your doctor's going to, doctor's going to sit down with a patient, know the patient's health history, know what, the health concern is, and then make a decision, whether it's a medical doctor or a naturopath or whoever it is, they're going to make a decision that's they think's in the best interest of the patient. Well, what right does the Minister of Health have stepping into that relationship? Like, it makes, right? Like, when you think about it, how are we going to have good health outcomes if the Minister of Health is interfering with trained medical professionals dealing with a single patient who they're familiar with?
It's political. It's obviously political, and people are going to suffer because of it. But go on.
It's pandemic. So it makes no sense. And we're not talking about it in Canada. We're not talking about there being problems.
Shawn, wait a minute. Hold on. If we got a Minister of Health who's trying to step on provincial toes here, because as you just pointed out, the provinces handle medical care, not the federal government. So this particular proposal, these amendments, would change that? Is that not in the Constitution?
It's probably unconstitutional, but Shadow, you show me, where our Constitution's being, is worth anything. Like, help me out here, because if you know something I don't, I'd like to know, because in my opinion, if somebody comes up to me and I'm a constitutional lawyer, been in court lots, you want to run a constitutional case, I'm going to try and discourage you nowadays. So, well, with this off-label use, the Minister of Health also, like the Food and Drug Act, deals with manufacture, distribution, sale. It's a commercial act. But on this off-label use, the minister, the changes make it clear, well, we can also go after basically anyone for promotion. So you don't even have to be selling the drug. You don't have to have a commercial interest. This is brand new. I've never seen anything like this before. I'm going, well, why are they going after non-doctors? Like, why are they going after people not in the industry? Shadow, they're going after you. And I'll explain that in a minute. And they're going after me. So, well, then the next changes is to basically give the minister godlike powers to ensure that no veterinary drug for love or money ever ends up for human use. And again, I'm going like, well, we're not really having a problem here. Like, a lot of people, will buy like, the iodine you rub on and stuff like that, because veterinary, it's just so cheap and it's just the same thing. Like, there is some crossover, but it's not a problem. Like, we don't have a problem here. So why is the Minister of Health stepping in? And then the Minister of Health is also stepping in to prevent off-label use for veterinary drugs. Now, Shadow, I know that right now in Canada, there's a big problem with drug companies pushing, a drug that's approved for cows on sheep. That's why the media is talking about it 24/7, and everyone else. Well, no, I'm making that up. Like, really? That we've got an off-label, veterinarians are getting out of hand in off-label use? How, like, it makes no sense. Well,
comes back to ivermectin, doesn't it? This is ivermectin. Wait.
So then the next change is, and I have to say, so first of all, it's our food and drug regulations are kind of like collective wisdom, right? So, like, let's say there's a class of drugs and, we allow it on the market at a certain level and we find out there's too much harm. Well, we'll pass a regulation lowering the level for the entire class of drugs, for example. And our food regulations, it's the same type of thing. Like, if you want orange popsicles, well, how much of a certain type of dye can you put in and it still be ultra safe? And ultra safe is no more than 1 death per million per year. So we, when we're 40 million Canadians, we can kill 40 kids a year to have orange popsicles, and we think that's still okay. But, just so we know what ultra safe means when I say that. But there are some fundamental protections that we actually put into our act because it's a red line in the sand. You can never breach these. And the one is you can't promote a drug fraudulently. Section 9 of our Food and Drug. So you cannot fraudulently promote a drug, whether you're the government or a company trying to get approval. you can't be fraudulent to the government. You can't be fraudulent to the public. It's a fundamental protection. Another fundamental protection is you cannot sell an adulterated drug. And when we, talk about this adulteration section, we're not talking about, manufacturer substituted one safe filler for another safe filler because they couldn't, source the other safe filler. We're talking about something in the drug that shouldn't be there that is dangerous to the human population. That's what we mean. So we have a fundamental protection against adulteration. And another protection we have that's fundamental in the Act is you can't sell a drug that is manufactured under unsanitary conditions. And we never bend on those things. Well, the Minister of Health is getting the power to exempt a drug from the fraud provisions, from the adulteration provisions, from the unsanitary manufacture provisions. And I'm thinking to myself, well, when is it in the public interest to allow, and if anyone can, chime in, when is it in the public interest to allow a drug to be sold fraudulently to the Canadian public? We're talking about a drug here. And when is it in the public interest for a adulterated drug, meaning this drug has something in it that shouldn't be there, that's dangerous to the Canadian populace? When is it in the public interest to allow an adulterated drug to be used by Canadians? And when is it in the public interest to allow a drug that is manufactured unsafely under unsanitary conditions to be sold and used by the Canadian public? Like it just you can see why I'm scratching my head, Shadow.
Yeah. Has the government, Shawn, has the government come out and given any reasons at all, even if there's circular talking? They're BS.
They've given two reasons. So the Minister of Health is on video saying, nicotine products are a real problem for Canadian youth. So, flavored vaping products and nicotine patches approved for adults that are being sold to youth. So I guess that's why we have to prohibit off-label use by doctors, because doctors must be, I didn't know that flavored vaping products were prescribed, but I guess doctors must be prescribing, raspberry nicotine vaping cartridges to vulnerable youth. No, they're not. And
you walk into a vaping store and buy that.
But what does make sense, I'm just realizing this now, so if we've got youth using flavored vaping products, then the way for us to stop that is to allow fraudulent, drugs to be sold fraudulently. It makes sense. And the way to protect this vulnerable youth is to allow adulterated drugs to be sold.
Like the COVID vaccine with the S40 simian virus in it.
Oh, you're hitting it, because here's the thing: is it, and
wow.
Let me finish, because I'm scratching my head, because then the other thing is they can now, the way our law is now is a drug company has to approach Health Canada, provide detailed submissions, and go through a drug approval process. But now, if a drug's approved by a foreign entity, there doesn't even have to be an application. Health Canada can just say, oh, it's approved here. And foreign entity is defined so broadly, it doesn't necessarily mean, the government agency in Uganda. It could mean the World Health Organization.
Probably does mean the World Health.
It could mean the World Health Organization. And Health Canada now can approve a drug on, and the word is portion, a portion of, of a document or documents that are provided by a foreign entity. So, let's say Pfizer applies to, one regulatory body and they're refused. Well, that regulatory body could just provide the good parts to Health Canada, and Health Canada could approve the drug. Like on what planet is this okay? It's almost like sneaking it in the Food and Drug Act is just an FU to the Canadian populace. You think you got a democracy, or you think you have an elected autocracy, bulllarchy. Your MPs mean nothing. You mean nothing to us. It's kind of like, you think we're here to protect your health. And it's making no sense. And then I think of them as a group, and it's a shopping list of how to make it easier the next time there's a pandemic. Because let's just talk about government liability. So if you wanted to, you're harmed by this COVID-19 vaccine and you wanted to sue the government, whether that's Health Canada or the Minister of Health, for approving a drug that was unsafe and didn't work, they have no liability because they came out with this interim order. They exempted the drug approval. They exempted COVID-19 vaccines from having to go through the regular drug approval test, where you do have to prove safety and efficacy. And they substituted a test where you didn't even have to submit your safety data. Like, let me say that again to your audience. So for the COVID-19 vaccines, the drug companies didn't even have to submit to Health Canada their safety data. Well, why would they? Because they didn't have to prove that it was safe. The word safety isn't even mentioned in the test, nor is the word efficacy mentioned in the test. They just had to be able to argue that this could be a good idea, that the benefits may outweigh the risk. So the test, if you want me to tell it to you, so the regular food drug approval test, just go to our drug regulations, C.08.001. That's our regular test, and you'll see safety efficacy. And there's kind of three minimum parts to approving a drug if you care about health. So you got to prove it's safe. And safety is a relative term, right? A drug might still have a lot of benefits, but you can't just allow it into the market. So you put restrictions like prescription and maybe other restrictions. So you got to prove it's safe. You have to prove it's effective, and listen carefully. Then and only then. It's only when you understand the safety profile, and it's only when you understand the efficacy profile that the third part kicks in, and that is this a good idea? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? Because if the benefits don't outweigh the risks, you're committing crimes by allowing it on the market. It's not even written into our test. It's just
who establishes if the benefits outweigh the risks? Because for me, I mean, and this is where we all had a problem, during the last pandemic. Me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm talking
about the regular drug approval process, which is a complete fraud on the Canadian populace. The COVID vaccines were exempted from that. And the minister came out with an interim order, just basically exempting them from most of the regulations, exempting them from the drug approval test, and saying, well, here's how you get approved. And the test, I can probably quote it verbatim, is the minister has sufficient evidence to support the conclusion. And I'll just stop there because we're already in trouble. When it says the minister has sufficient evidence to support the conclusion, we're now in total subjective argument zone, because it should say the minister has sufficient evidence to conclude, meaning you have to convince the minister of what follows, right? It should read the minister has sufficient evidence to conclude, blah, blah, blah. But no, it says the minister has sufficient evidence to support the conclusion, not the minister's conclusion. So let's say it's Pfizer. They're now just have to argue what follows. So the minister has sufficient evidence to support the conclusion that the benefits of the drug outweigh the risks, having regard to the uncertainties concerning the benefits and risks and the urgent public health emergency presented by COVID-19. Safety is not mentioned. Efficacy is not mentioned. Basically, Pfizer just has to be able to argue, this is the benefits outweigh the risks. The minister has to take into account that we don't know the benefits and risks, because it says having regard to the uncertainties concerning the benefits of risks. And the minister also has to understand there's a public health emergency, because the last part of the test is, and so having regard to the uncertainties concerning benefits of risks, and so meaning having regard to the public health emergency presented by COVID-19. Now, this is a mandatory test. The minister must approve if this test is met. So basically, you could get Windex approved. I don't know what there's not a bigger fraud test in the world. But where I was going with this is, you can't sue the government for saying, hey, you let onto the market a drug that was not proven safe and effective, because they didn't have to. But you could sue the government for adulteration for the COVID-19 vaccines, because we know, and Health Canada knows, with all that DNA contamination, that's full-scale adulteration. It's dangerous. It shouldn't be there. And they're still allowing it on the market, knowing this. And you also could go after them for fraud. Health Canada, let's just use Pfizer as an example. Like, go to the Health Canada website. For every COVID-19 vaccine they've approved, they have a separate page. So there'd be a Pfizer page, a Pfizer vaccine page on the Health Canada website. And at the top of that page, and I haven't looked at it for a couple of months, but I know it's there, it's been there from day one, is a sentence in bold that reads something like, all COVID-19 vaccines approved by Health Canada have proven to be safe, effective, and of the highest quality. Well, they haven't proven to be safe, and Health Canada knows they're not safe. They haven't proved to be effective, and Health Canada knows they don't work. They know they're negative efficacy for COVID. And Health Canada knows that they're not of the highest quality, that never, ever in the history of mankind has a regulatory body allowed a drug of such low quality and with adulteration and manufacturing problems up the yin-yang to remain on the market. So there's fraud. You could sue them for fraud. And Pfizer's been, in my opinion, when we look at the Pfizer dump and omissions and the like, so next time, so it's kind of like a shopping list. So next time, to make sure the government isn't liable for an mRNA vaccine that is rushed, the minister will exempt it from the adulteration provisions. The minister will exempt, let's just using Pfizer example, will exempt Pfizer and Health Canada from the fraud provisions so that it can be marketed to the public as safe and effective. The minister will exempt Pfizer from the unsafe manufacturing practices. And now there's no government liability. And oh, wait, well, doctors were promoting ivermectin. Well, their colleges were going after them, but now Health Canada can with $5 million a day fines and 2 years in jail. But wait, Shadow Davis was saying, Dr. Nagase was saying ivermectin's effective. Oh, well, now Shadow Davis can be fined for, $5 million a day that episode's up on his website because he was promoting the use of off-label use that's been banned by the minister. So you see how this is a censorship tool for the next time round to make sure that nobody, you, me, dog, it doesn't matter if you're doctors, it doesn't matter if you're in the industry, no one could promote, the word is promote, off-label use for a drug that the minister said you can't promote off-label use. So ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C or vitamin C and D are the first four that come to my mind. Remember, was it our Minister of Health or was it in somebody Minister of Health? I think it was ours, ridiculed vitamin D.
Oh, they've all been ridiculing every vitamin, every off-label drug that there is. Let me ask you this, Shawn. If all of this is so clearly obvious for them to have gotten this COVID drug out there, even against all of these regulations that you've just noted, why haven't we gotten a class action lawsuit together? Do you have to prove some kind of injury or is it just a basic fraud case?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not a civil lawyer, so I can't answer that question. I think there are some class action lawsuits that have started.
There are, but not in this way. I mean, like the way you've laid this out makes them, at least it seems like it makes them completely vulnerable to a lawsuit, the kind of which you've just mentioned. You could go after them for.
You definitely could go after them for adulteration. And you definitely could go after them for fraud because, that DNA contamination it's just crazy. We're going to be calling some witnesses at the Regina hearings that, have been on the ground floor of that DNA contamination research. And it's scary. Like the amount of DNA, this, transfection issue that's, been documented in vitro writ large. And, we knew about it before in other attempts. It's downright scary. I mean, literally, the human species may have been permanently altered by what we've just done. I mean, genetically permanently altered.
We've seen a lot of that happening lately, and yet these governments and large corporations continue to just go about their business like nothing ever happened, and sadly, most of the public does as well. Talking about the new NCI, again, let me just say congratulations.
But it's not new, you see, because this is the thing.
Well, the new hearings
Okay,
is what I'm talking about.
Because what I've learned is, with what's happened, is people can just say things that aren't true, and it's believed. Like, I was going to say, it's too bad, you and I don't have a conscience so that we'll lie. It's not too bad at all. Thank the Lord that we do. But people that there are people out there that just simply will lie to you. And I think it's been our fundamental problem that's gotten us into this. Like, let's just use, Trudeau as an example. I mean, wasn't he basically found to be fraudulent with that engineering thing and stuff like that in his first term? Like, there were clear problems, ethical problems. Hasn't he been investigated for ethics violation more than any prime minister in our history? And yet, Dominion voting machines notwithstanding, he keeps getting reelected. So somehow we've been trained to think it's okay to have leaders lying to us and being dishonest and not holding people to account. And that has to change. Like, it's our own fault.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we fail to appreciate you can't escape harm when your leaders are lying to you. Bad things are going to happen. It's just how bad, and how bad will depend on how long you tolerate it. Because now, like, what institution can you point to that you go, well, at least that one is really doing their job and protecting the public? I am so proud. I can't believe.
No, our justice minister just appointed 7 new judges today, and he was so very proud of that on X. And I went, oh, so our country has gone just a little bit more Marxist now. With each judge this government appoints, it makes us go further down that road to hell, as far as I'm concerned. And when people talk about Pierre Poilievre coming in and changing things, they can't imagine the mountain that he is going to be facing. He's going to have liberal judges at every level in every province across this country. He's going to have a liberal appointed Senate. He's going to have a liberal Supreme Court. He's going to have a liberal bureaucracy, understanding that they're supposed to be completely and totally nonpartisan. That is not the case at all. They're human beings. They like the liberals. They don't like the conservatives. What's the old axiom? When the liberals are in power, they're in power. When the conservatives win, they're in office. Because it's amazing. Go ahead.
Absolutely. But, I think that, it doesn't make any difference who's in power, because there are things like, on the Food and Drug Act file, it doesn't matter whether the conservatives are in or the liberals are in. Like, let me just give you an example. So, I mean, my big, thing is access to natural health products. And we were being moved into the drug category in the early 2000s. So, we had a big consumer rebellion in the late 90s, and, we kind of took 5-6 years to figure out what we're doing. And we were fighting getting put into the drug model. So, and what the drug model is there's 3 elements to the drug model, and it's important for your audience to understand. So, first of all, is you define drugs so broadly that anything used for therapeutic purpose is a drug. So it doesn't matter what it is. If you're going to use it for therapeutic purpose, it's a drug. And you're sounding a little raspy. I think you're dehydrated. Can you drink some water? Oh, I just made water a drug. Thank God, gosh, I didn't give you the water. I would have violated, 20,000 federal regulations. It wasn't, safe manufacturing practices. I didn't have a license approved where I've proven that the water I'm selling you will help mitigate dehydration. So step 1 is you define drugs so broadly, anything used for therapeutic purposes is a drug. Step 2 is you make it illegal to sell a drug without government pre-approval in the form of a license. So when you move in the drug model, you take everyone's freedom away. Now it's illegal for you to use anything therapeutic that the drug hasn't approved. So it doesn't matter, we might have been using ginger tea for 3,000 years to treat nausea. It's now illegal unless somebody applies to the government to get government permission to tell you that ginger tea treats nausea, which is why nobody knows it. And step 3 is you, for serious health conditions, you make the drug approval process, this licensing process, so expensive that the only drugs approved to treat serious health conditions, and I'm going to scare you in a moment, the only drugs approved to treat serious health conditions have patents when they go through the process. So the last time I had a drug approval expert on the stand, so they're under oath, they have to tell me the truth. And I asked, well, how much does it cost on average to get through the new drug approval process? It's about 12 years ago. Without blinking, $1 billion. Now, you can get through a simple application for a couple $100 million, but you're only going to go through the process if you have a patent, because then you have a monopoly if you succeed, and you can charge a high price and get your money back and then make a ton of money. So Shadow, I don't know how old you are, but I promise you in your lifetime, there has only been one drug approved for a serious health condition that didn't have a patent. That was sponsored by government. So it means that if you go to your doctor or you go to the hospital with a serious health condition, heart disease, cancer, arthritis, depression, anything psychiatric, bipolar, whatever, or erectile dysfunction, because it's a big moneymaker. So that's a serious health condition. The only legal options are chemical drugs. So we might as well change the law and say it is illegal to treat a serious health condition in Canada, except with novel chemicals that had a patent when they went through the drug approval process, because this is deliberate. This isn't by accident. This is by design. Our drug laws are to protect intellectual property rights, not to get good health outcomes. I mean, the whole thing is a fraud. And,
it's a scam between the government and big business, and in this case, big pharma.
It is a fraud, and it's been a fraud as long as you and I have been alive. It is a control mechanism, because our food, every Western nation moved into this drug model in the 1930s, all at the same time. It was all a coordinated effort to enslave us and put us in a cage where it's even illegal to be told about things like ginger tea. And that's an example that came to mind. So you have absolute censorship on truthful health information. You have this health system which only uses novel chemicals. Well, you don't get good health outcomes. If we had no drug policy, no drug laws now, and you and I sat down and said, how do we get good health outcomes? The last thing we'd do is well, let's make it illegal to treat anything except with novel chemicals. That's the last thing we would do. It's absolute madness.
The interesting thing here is that most of the public, I would say, has been brainwashed for years. Just get a prescription. My dad used to complain going to the doctor. He'd say, my ass barely touched the seat, and I've got a prescription in my hand, and I'm out the door to go to the drugstore to pick up whatever prescription it was, right? So, as you say, this goes back to the 19...
legal thing they can use. The whole system's been captured by the pharmaceutical companies.
But then what I'm saying here is that
before you and I were born,
before
our parents were born, the system was already captured by the drug companies.
So if the public is already brainwashed into this way of thinking, prescription's going to save me, it's going to make me better, give me medicine, then why do they have to do this at all? Is it just to get the stragglers, the people like us who still believe that maybe some, health products, some health foods are actually going to help prevent whatever disease I might need drugs for later?
There is a war on natural health products. And I mean, we haven't talked, it could be a whole other show. And we've actually had a show on it, but maybe we should have another one on the self-care framework. Like I could update you on a whole bunch of stuff. We are going to lose most of our natural health products, I would say, in the next, around 16 months to 2 years, we'll start really seeing it. Now, we'll get them back, because the reality is people are going to get so mad. We're just going to force a change, but it's going to be ugly for a while. Like if you really rely on some products, then they have a long shelf life. And just so you know, that the expiry dates really are meaningless. So they want you to throw and talk about natural health product companies too. I mean, it's just in the licensing process. Well, what's the shelf life? Well, I don't
forever,
know.
Man. But we're not going to tell you that.
Chicken bones into the pot and have a good look and figure that out. But it's usually a
Sean,
heck
when
of a
you
lot
you
longer than you
you
think.
you talk about this next pandemic they might be gearing up for, this is just us taking a guess here, but with these new regulations taking effect, and they are going to take effect very soon, right?
Well,
I mean,
I think their goal is to try and have it to the Senate by June 5th. I mean, budget bills tend to get rushed through because they're quite necessary, and we don't have a functioning democracy anymore. Like, why couldn't everyone just agree? Well, let's excise these food and drug provisions, so we'll approve it except for those. That, if you want to introduce a separate bill and get that to the Standing Committee of Health, no party's saying that. Like, the whole system doesn't work anymore, and it hasn't worked for a long, long time. And the whole thing was designed not to work anyway, just to give us an illusion that somehow we have some control over our lives, which is, just an absolute joke. The fact that, since the Magna Carta, which only applied to the nobles, but, we've extended it down since that, well, we have rule of law, meaning everyone, including the king, is subject to the law. Well, no, that might work if the citizens appointed the judges and fired the judges. And why would you ever have a lifetime approval? How is that in anyone's interest? 5 years max and you're out, and you have to practice law for another 5 years, and then maybe you can reapply, because we get these people thinking they're gods. But the whole system's broken. I can't think of a legal philosophical foundation in our Constitution that serves human rights. It serves the king really well, and
which king are we talking about here?
It serves the king's servants. Well, our king is Charles, and
Hey, as an offside, what did you think about that painting of him that came out a few weeks ago? Did you see that?
I did see that, and Shadow, nothing surprises me now because I fully believe that we're in a spiritual war manifesting as an information war. I was interviewing a witness for the NCI hearings coming up, and this fellow is a hardcore Christian who, really did some things during the COVID. And I was saying, well, as your understanding was starting to kind of change as you were doing this stuff, like how did it change? And this fellow said to me, he says, well, what changed is I came to realize that, like, evil was so real that we really are fighting principalities and powers. Like, this is like a David and Goliath thing where, little David's literally facing a giant and trusting God and understanding it has nothing to do with how big the giant is, because there's other things happening here. Right. So, so, I mean, the whole thing, everything we're going through, thankfully, is a spiritual war. And I just say thankfully, because once you figure that out, things are a lot better, because you're not surprised, and you have somebody to plug into to really tell you what to do and not to do, and guide you, so to speak. But
let me ask you about the NCI. Shawn, you've been working a lot to get this back out, hearing the voices of more people, and you've got the first hearings and the second wave coming up, as you said, in a few days in Regina. This has been a lot of work for you.
Yeah, and can I ask your audience that's on social media, so follow the NCI social media channels, which you have to go to our .ca website. So from day one, when we started our website in the fall of 2022, it's been nationalcitizensinquiry.ca. I'm, embarrassed, I have to say .ca, because there's an imitation site now. But, everyone I talk to, like all the experts and they all have imitators. It's part of what the deep state does to weaken you. And, and like I'm talking to an expert I'm calling this morning. I'm talking to this expert. The expert has the same problem. Like, there's imitators on, I was a couple of months ago, I'm having a call with Dr. Martin, and I get off the call and somebody brings to my attention, he's putting out on social media, there's this whole site and, social media presence. It's not me. It's just claiming to be me. So, but what I find interesting is the NCI is all about doing what citizens getting together and doing what they can't do, which is how I know we're on track. because we're kind of back at square one, and yet it's exploding again. So like we were, just so overwhelmed and overworked approaching the 2023 hearings. We didn't even start posting. We didn't even start our social media channels, until a couple of months before the hearings. Right. We couldn't be verified on Twitter. It took 90 days when the hearings started. Like, that's how far behind we were. And, we had a volunteer call and set up our Twitter account and most of our other accounts. And then some other volunteers came in to help. And then we hired one of the volunteers, and it was like post, and do paid ads, do whatever you can, but we're being shadow banned. So, those that watch the hearings, you recall at the openings, I was always saying, like, if you're on social media, just retweet, repost, do everything to push us out, because and people did. We had volunteer teams form, like we had hundreds of clippers that would clip content so that social media people could post. We had volunteers like start social media groups to get the word out. It was just beautiful what happened, and we overcame it. What's crazy this time is when we put out the commissioner's report, Shadow, we were having 100,000 social media impressions a day. We were having 2,000 new visitors to our website a day, new visitors. And then when our social media accounts were stolen and we were starting to be impersonated, all of that's been ruined. So, which kind of grieves me, because I'm in this to wake parents up so they stop jabbing kids. Like, to me, that's just the biggest crime. But I think that what we're going through is just, it would have been easy for us to do these other hearings. We would have had these big social media accounts, this big following, and we would have relied on ourselves. And that's not how God works. If you can rely on yourself, then you don't have to, get on your knees and say, God, this is now impossible, which is what we had to do last time. And I don't care who you are, whether you believe or don't believe, you watch all of the hearings last time and you'll go, there was something weird happening there. Like, we became a community, we started forgiving each other. And so we know we're on track now. I mean, here, you look at our official social media channels, they're teeny and all of that. But like, all of a sudden now everyone's reposting us and tagging us and all the experts, and things are just exploding days before we have our hearings. And that's how I know we are going to have a fantastic experience, because that's what it's all about. It's just like, I'm actually glad it unfolded this way.
You look pretty excited, to be honest. I thought that I was because the last time we spoke, this was private. I'm not going to tell anybody anything they don't know, but you were worried about everything that was going on. But I'm so happy, Shawn, that things have worked out so well, and you're about to embark on this new phase 2, let's call it then, of the NCI. How much work has this been now, getting it all together, getting the witnesses together and the commissioners and just getting the word out? I mean, as just pointed out.
And just so you know, I mean, like, there's volunteers behind the scenes. Like, it's not, I'm just one part. And, my wife has been, Teresa's been instrumental. Like, she's basically carried the NCI since after our hearings. But, that's the beautiful thing, is you see other people come along. Like, the NCI is about just ordinary people that, see this as a way of helping to break the narrative. And, there's something about listening to each other again. We didn't want to allow any lay witnesses back. In fact, we didn't want to allow any of the same experts back. We've agreed to allow one expert to come back just briefly on some new points, but we didn't want to have any lay witnesses. And then, but we made an exception for one. And this person in the 2023 hearings was just really damaged with the COVID vaccine. And at the time of her testimony, her husband had just been diagnosed with cancer, and her 23-year-old son had had a heart attack, or not a heart attack, a pulmonary embolism. And they, pull a big one of these, earthworm things out of his system. And we wanted an update from this person. Do you know her husband died of cancer now?
Are we talking about Colleen here?
Yeah.
Is this the, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Colleen is an amazing person.
Yeah.
She's
So, I mean, we just
amazing.
felt
She
compelled
might be
to actually
watching
reach out
right
to her.
now. Colleen, you're one of my heroes. So please continue. She's great.
Well, it's just, she inspires me because there's so much adversity, but her spirit is so strong. And, I don't know where she gets her strength from, but she inspires me. And I'm proud that she's coming back to, speak to us. But it's just, we're all together in this, and we're all just kind of on a journey. And I know I have so much to learn from everyone else, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited that we're having some witnesses again. And there's some things we were weak at last time, and it's funny. So this week, the World Health Organization is going to decide. They don't vote. It's just if you don't object, these international health regulations. So we're going to have a couple of people speak to that. So we're going to have James Roguski. We're going to have Tess Laurie speak to that. We're going to be very current on this stuff. And we're also, one thing we were weak on last time was pregnancy issues with the vaccine and miscarriages with the vaccine. And we're gonna have Dr. James Thorpe share some information, some research that has never been shared with the world before. So it's people are going to hear it first at the NCI. It's really going to be crazy good.
Have you got hearings planned going forward, Shawn?
Well,
I know that it's a busy schedule. You've got the Regina ones coming up, but are you going forward through the country?
I think the tentative plan, is to have another 3 days, likely in BC in the late fall, and then another set of 3 days in Ontario in the winter. So, but Shadow, if somebody took your social media channels and then started with just posting and they're not you, so they're actually not saying anything you're doing. Like, so our old social media channels that we had all collectively built up for the sole purpose of pushing hearings, those people.
Look at your screen.
Colleen, hello, Colleen. So those people that are following our old social media channels that are stolen, they're not even being told of the hearings. Can you imagine that? Nothing that I do is ever mentioned. We've called we had Dr. Malone come back for just this crazy good interview. Like they won't post anything that the real NCI is doing. They won't post anything with me at all. They will post some stuff commissioners are doing, not if I'm involved, so that it kind of looks like they're the NCI. But if somebody took your social media accounts and also was able to illegally email to your list, like the law in Canada is you can't email like a promotional email to somebody unless you have collected their email address and they've consented to you sending it out. And we have like 48,000 of those. Well, the people impersonating us stole the list. And so all of a sudden they send out a couple of emails pretending to be us and actually presenting a story. It's like, oh, there was a split, all of this. Well, no, there wasn't. But it doesn't matter. You can lie to people and people just buy into it, right? So we had to go to MailChimp, who was the provider they were using, and MailChimp actually gave us that account. Like, it's like, no, it's your website. You've collected them. They can't do it. So they went to another email provider, Brevo, and sent out one, and then we appealed to Brevo, and Brevo's cut them off. And they just did it recently again, MailJet. It's purely illegal. So they only get to send one off before we appeal now, and then they're disallowed. But what do you do when people are just willing to break the law?
What are they sending out though, Shawn? I mean, are they sending out disinformation about what you guys are doing? Just lies?
Some of them, I mean, it looks like they're us all the time. They're using our logo and stuff like that, which is, we own the rights to. We own the copyright. We've got a trademark application in. Like the imitation website, it looks like us. They're calling for donations. Like they're actually pretending. They're pretending to be us. And like, Shadow, if somebody took your social media accounts, actually took your money, and then had your email list and was pretending to be you, it just does an enormous amount of damage. So one of the things that's hurt us is like people won't donate anymore because they don't know who they're donating to. And, they're upset with this division. Well, there was no division. There wasn't an internal split where we disagreed on what we were doing. We kicked David Ross out. Like, he'll say, no, I resigned. Well, yeah, but you knew we were bringing a motion with a majority to have you leave. And you said, well, instead, I'll submit a motion to resign. Will you accept it? So we can say he wasn't voted off. Well, that's a distinction without difference. And then after that, he and Chess Crosby, who were the two directors of our not-profit, said,
Shawn is frozen here. Shawn, you have frozen. Okay, well, Shawn is frozen. We're going to throw this back up on to the screen here.
Go.
Oh, well, there he is. Yeah.
Happened. But anyway,
Yeah, actually, you were frozen there with a very decent expression on your face. It could have been much worse.
Sometimes, you're catching flies or anything. But, we'll get off that subject, except to say,
yeah, so you don't really need to go into the background of what happened.
We lost funding, and we've had to deal with this. Like, we didn't want to go public, Shadow, but we've lost our social media channels. Well, wait a second. We're an independent commission. We don't align with any freedom group. It doesn't matter whether we think you're the best thing since sliced bread. We don't repost what other freedom groups are doing. There's no anger. We just talk about our witnesses. We talk about what the commissioners are doing, because our social media posts, they reflect on the independent commissioners. And they reflect on the NCI admin, which is trying to have an organization that is independent and will have all sides of a conversation testify and share why they think the way they think. So our channels are taken and well, let's repost Alex Jones and let's post some videos of angry people and let's start tagging other freedom groups that so it was actually when we were worried about some postings that were really reflect poorly on the commissioners that we went public. So at least some people would understand it's actually not us. But it was to protect the commissioner's reputation, and it was a hard decision to make. And what do you do?
Yeah, it's difficult, because Alex Jones is very well loved by many, many people. But I understand that the commissioners need to remain independent in their outlook when they're listening to these witnesses, and they are not. They're supposed to ask questions, obviously, as we witnessed the last time you guys went around. But if they're perceived to be by, let's just say, people who may not agree that you should even be doing this at all, that they're biased in any way, then the whole commission is a complete failure. Well, I agree. I totally understand what you're saying.
We're independent. Like, whether you agree with us or not, we've just had made the decision from the very beginning. No,
it means unbiased as well, too. You can't go into this with any kind of sense of bias from anybody who may or may not have an opinion on this from outside governmental or even left-wing corporate media, right?
We shouldn't. But let's just talk about the good, because here's the thing is we can talk about negative, but again, I think we're in a spiritual war, and I think that all of this is happening for a reason. And the positive thing about the NCI is the NCI board now is everyone's on side with the same mission. It's like we've stumbled on to a formula where, we actually think we can hold really good hearings on any topic, not just COVID. It could be on any topic where there isn't a forum for Canadians to be heard, and then experts on all parts of the conversation to be heard, so the Canadians actually can have, a whole wide range of information and then decide themselves what they want to do with it. And, so we just decided, no, we've stumbled across something. We're in an area where the mainstream media now is propaganda. I mean, it's why your show is so important. And so what other mechanism is there right now that actually could, in as fair a way as possible, allow Canadians to get truthful information about things, and maybe even untruthful information? And we swear all our witnesses to tell the truth. But, it's not like we've got lawyers vigorously cross-examining them. Like that could happen if people go off the rails. And under our rules, anyone can apply to be a party, so that likely will happen in the future.
That'd be interesting to see the cross-examinations.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
We've got this board now that's fully committed. No, let's just keep going. We did a survey of Canadians, like, what topics do you want us to cover? And it was just overwhelming. Stick on COVID still. We're not finished with COVID. Okay. We'll stick with COVID. But, we could, in a year from now, the NCI could be holding parallel hearings. I mean, we wouldn't do it on the same days, but you could have hearings going on different topics. So our plan now is to have a pool of commissioners. Like, we've got 2 commissioners returning from last year for the Regina hearings. Another has, a scheduling conflict. And so we've added 2 new commissioners, but we've made it clear to all of them, well, we want you to just be in a pool. And then if we're going to have a hearing on something, if you guys are interested, we just want to know who's available to select from. And, so I think that, what happens going forward is just going to depend on Canadians, because, we've just learned so much. So I like to think that the glass is half full, and I like to think that we're actually stronger. And I'm just really excited going forward, but completely shocked at what our government's doing. And now I do think we're going to be in a pandemic again. And I'm really curious. I'm just going to turn my camera off for a second. I see I went fuzzy. I'm going to see if it focuses yet.
I thought it was me.
No, it does this. And I don't know, it's when the light, it just.
What the hell's going on with my eyes?
Yeah, clean your glasses, please. I'm worried they're gonna try the pandemic again, and it might be because of the U.S. election. Like, they don't want to have it. Are they going to be in a war? Or are they going to what? So they could try the pandemic thing, and I'm curious. With so many people, whether they know it's the vaccine or not, with so many people injured, will Canadians comply again? Like, will they put up with this? Because if I can tell you something anecdotal.
Yep.
So the hearings are coming up. I got to get my hair shorter so I look semi-respectable. And my hairdresser, who I won't name, but she's fairly awake. And she was saying to me, like, it's literally 100% of the people that sit in her chair talk about either being injured or somebody close to them being injured. Like, they can't sit in her chair and get your hair cut without you talking, the customer talking about injuries. And she says some of them have no idea what's causing them, and some do know it's the vaccine, but it's in our point of notice right now because it's so prevalent. It's in our point of notice. And, there's a significant amount of the population that still turns on the 6 o'clock news. They don't know that that's actually enslaving them. That, like, literally, if we want to be safe, we should actually demand that all mainstream media stop. Like, we need literally to have a media break and stop all censorship on social media. Because it's just so entrenched. The tools are so entrenched, but they're still watching the 6 o'clock news, but they know they're hurt by the vaccine. And are those people going to take another rush vaccine?
It's an interesting question.
Right?
It's an interesting question.
Let their kids take it.
Shawn, we got to wrap it up. Thank you for coming on tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time. You guys go to National Citizens Inquiry, all one word. nationalcitizensinquiry.ca for the schedule, for all of the correct social media channels that you could follow.
So please, so it's and so this is like Mountain Time. So it's Thursday, May 30th, May 31st, June 1st. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week. We start at 9 o'clock Saskatchewan time, which is the same as Mountain Time this time of year. And we're probably run until about 8 o'clock at night still, because it's just the way it works. Some of these witnesses just take longer, and the commissioners ask a bunch of questions.
What venue are you using in Regina?
Mosaic Stadium. We have a wonderful. They've got a. Jeepers,
That's all right. That's just maybe just rubbing.
So yeah, well, it's not dirty. It's just something happens, and maybe it's a lighting thing. No, that didn't make any difference. Well, anyway, the interdimensionals are taking me. I'm getting fuzzy, but no, we have a great venue, and if anyone wants to travel to Regina, you have to get tickets online. They don't cost anything, and it's been broken up into 3 time groups a day, but just get it for all 3 time groups. And if you show up without a ticket, I'm sure we'll figure something out, because you don't want thousands of people there because it's a hearing. But it is encouraging to have lots of people there, and there's just something about it live.
I know. I experienced it myself, and I have to say it was much more than I expected it to be. Very professional, very well organized. It looked great as well, and the people there seemed to understand. It was like an official, if I can use this in the good sense, government function or high level corporate function that that we've come to respect over the years. That kind of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Where you walk in, you go, "Whoa, this is impressive here." A bunch of people got together and decided to do a cross country inquiry. Look at this.
Like it's totally true. Like not a single big funder. Like it's largely been like thousands and thousands of like $35 donations type thing, and all citizens. Like we had one support staff person that we paid next to nothing. We had our social media guy. The odd like the AV team is contracted out, but they went above and beyond, and we have the same AV team back. But I mean, this is just citizens. Like people have to understand that you can't sit still, and you would be amazed at what you can do if you just decide to do it, and it's what you should be doing, right? Like, so
put your mind to it, man. Put your mind to it. Look, I got to get going. Okay. But Shawn, thanks for having me. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it. Good luck in Regina. Let's talk again soon, and let's do that other show that we keep talking about for the past year on natural foods and products in this country. Okay. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Shadow. Keep up the good work.
All right. You too. Shawn Buckley of the National Citizens Inquiry. And again, guys, you can go to nationalcitizensinquiry.ca for all the schedules, the upcoming hearings in Regina this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as Shawn said. And you can watch the live streaming on the website as well. That's it for social media tonight. We still have so much more to cover, including Tedros of the World Health Organization saying, well, we gave it a shot. It didn't work. What was he talking about exactly? Was he talking about the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty? You're going to find out in 2 minutes if you're an all-access member at shadowdavis.com. If not, I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. And on Wednesday night, give me 2 seconds here. On Wednesday night, we have Kevin Karpovich of Bow Valley Credit Union to clear up a few things regarding the Bank Act here in Canada. Something that's been really bothering me for the past couple of months now. When I read the Bank Act on the government website, where it says banks will not be allowed to do business in Canada as of June 2025. So I've sent Kevin these questions. Kevin is going to respond. He's going to answer these questions on Wednesday night. Again, Kevin Karpovich of Bow Valley Credit Union coming on Wednesday night here on the Shadow at Night live stream. All right. I'll catch you guys tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on social media, 8 o'clock Central. And for those of you with all access, we will catch you in 2 minutes' time at shadowdavis.com.